of the Trash Talk Hour. Special guests today are my amazing wife, Megan Trenton, CEO of Armed Forces Across America, and our beloved channel sponsor, Corey Doe, with the Veterans Mortgage Source and PCS to Paradise. Happy Saturday. What's going on, y'all?
What's
Well,
happening?
I'm at an event, so just heads up. I'm in David's fancy car.
I like it.
But
And the technical difficulties are already starting, huh?
Uh-oh, she froze.
Yeah.
Are we still there?
You're still here. Yep, you're breaking up a little bit, Megan.
Well, I was fine until everything cut out, but yeah, I'm in here in your car because I'm taking a step out of the event that I'm at. Is this better?
That's awesome. Yeah, you're good. You're good. Corey, how are you, brother? Tuning in from Hawaii?
Yep. It's rain's finally stopped here, which is nice. It's been raining like every day all winter, one of the rainiest winters we've had. So nice to see a sunny day for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, early here, 11 a.m. here. So just waking up, ready to go.
Just waking up. I mean, it's Saturday, right? So why not? You know?
Yeah, it's Saturday.
Yeah, so today's show, guys, we're not going to cover a conspiracy or anything. It's all going to be VA loan, real estate related. So for anybody that's tuning in and watching right now, I'm just going to have both of our guests introduce themselves, what they do. And we're going to go with ladies first. My wife, Megan Trenton, CEO of Armed Forces Across America. Tell the viewers a little bit about Armed Forces Across America, what it is, and what we do.
Yeah. So I've been a real estate agent for about 10 years. Actually, June will be 10 years. Well, technically May is 10 years. So I'm about to have to do all my continuing education credits overnight again. But essentially, when I met David, just naturally, a lot of my clientele shifted over to the military community. And we just started noticing that a lot of people were getting completely screwed over by agents that didn't know what they were doing. And just for a little frame of reference, when you go to big companies as a real estate agent, like Veterans United, like Zillow, like Realtor.com, you can pay them money to take leads. So when you put your information, hey, I want to see this house, hey, I'm looking for a loan, I don't have an agent, they just pass that information out to any agent who pays. So we were seeing a lot of people get screwed over by agents who were paying for their information that essentially have done 1, 2, 3 deals, didn't really know what they were doing, especially not with VA loans. And we were hearing horror story after horror story. So I created Armed Forces Across America, where essentially we have agents all across the country, and I interview them and I check their numbers and I make sure that they are high producers and they're VA specialists and they're doing a minimum of 24 VA deals in the last 24 months. And just making sure that everybody that we patch people with across the country, that they're with people that are experienced so they don't get screwed over. So that's what we do. And people have asked me, like, can we pay you for these leads? And I say no. I have set it up to where we are in control. We interview the agents. We have a bar of entry, and we're vetting people and making sure that our military clients are getting paired up with agents who really know what they're doing.
Yeah, I love it. And for anybody that's watching, if you want more information on that, that's armedforcesacrossamerica.com. We have a website. You can follow us on Facebook as well. And we're doing a lot of great things. And that kind of ties into Corey does with the Veterans Mortgage Source and PCS to Paradise. Why don't you talk about that a little bit, brother?
Yeah, so I was Army officer, got into the mortgage industry through a buddy that
West Point, right? West Point.
Yeah, I'm a West Point guy. And he brought me into VA lending, and that's kind of how the Veterans Mortgage Source got started. And really, kind of like Megan highlighted, there's so many, I think Veterans United, Navy Fed, the big names that people go to. You start to realize, like, wow, the fees they charge, the rates they have are just, and it's not that it really comes from the fact that when you have $1 million a month plus marketing budget to attract those leads and get your name like that, it comes through to the consumer. So, our big thing, just like Megan said, is we really were like, hey, we don't charge lender fees to any veterans. And, just, I think even having the knowledge and personal touch was really big for a lot of veterans getting through their story where, we're not a call center. So we're not just there, hammering marketing and just have a bunch of randos on the phone that will pick up and don't really know what they're doing. So service and, really helping veterans was our biggest thing. And that's what we really try to have, is that service touch. And PCS to Paradise, very similar to Armed Forces Across America, came about because as people are moving, especially to Hawaii, there's, it's a huge move for people. There's information they need for that move. And so getting them connected with the right agents, we don't sell any leads we get through PCS to Paradise or people we meet on there. It's all of our agents on there were vetted. I think you guys vetted probably half of them in the other states. Yeah. Because really at the end of the day, what we want and our mission is to get people using their VA loan, building wealth through real estate, and having a great experience with professional people that know what they're doing, because there is unfortunately a very low barrier to entry to enter this profession on both lending and real estate side. And the last thing we want is, veterans getting screwed over because they're working with people who don't know what they're doing, taking advantage of them. Given most people buy a home 1 or 2 times in their life, they don't know what they don't know. And so, it's really important they work with professionals. And that's really what we try to do. We try to lead with education and, education and expertise in our craft and the VA loan, and just helping veterans make the best decision for their family.
Absolutely. If you're watching in the chat and you have any questions for these two, just drop it in the chat and we'll address those questions as we move along. But let's start off with, you just talked about education and everything. This question can be answered by both of you. What's the biggest myth both of you have flat out heard about VA loans that are just wrong? Like the biggest myth, like something, this and that, it's absolutely wrong. I don't care who goes first, Meg or Corey. Maybe you, because go ahead.
I would say it's probably that you can only use your VA loan once. It's probably the biggest myth I've heard. I mean, there's so many different myths out there that, misinformation about the VA loan, but that's probably the biggest one I've heard from service members is like, oh, I'm saving my VA loan for when I retire, or, from active duty. I would say that's probably the number one myth.
And can you elaborate on that one a little bit, Corey, just for anybody that's watching that's like, oh, what? I can use it more than once, and kind of what that looks like, because it's obviously, it's based on how much they still have left in their VA loan, also based on the state they're in, right? I think we look at the zip code for things like that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the VA loan is really, it's about entitlement. So what the VA loan actually is, the VA doesn't provide the money. What they do is they guarantee banks a 25% loss on your loan. So a private lender gives you a loan. The VA guarantees that loan for 25% loss if you were to go into foreclosure. So essentially, veterans have, if you think about it in the eyes of a bank, they have a 25% down payment with every loan they purchase. And so what the VA loan actually is on an entitlement basis is how much guarantee the VA will provide you. So if you've never used your VA loan before, or you've bought and sold a home, so your entitlement is free and clear, the VA right now will give you 25% guarantee on whatever you can income and credit qualify for. And I've done VA loans upwards of $3 million with no money down. And the VA will guarantee that loan for 25% loss.
And just to touch on that, Corey, if you were to buy a $3 million home on a VA loan, you can, just because people, I think one of the biggest myths that I've heard as an agent is that you can only use your VA loan once. And that is not the case. You can use your VA loan as many times as you want, as long as you have enough entitlements. And the first time, and it's not the first time, but if you don't have any VA loans currently, then that time that you're using it really without any other VA loans out, whether it's the first time and then you sold or like you bought one, you sold it, and now you're about to buy again, that's still, you don't have any other VA loans out. There is no limit at all other
Nope.
than your debt to income ratio.
Yeah, your own credit and income limitations is what limits you.
But when you buy with your VA the second time, that's where the limit comes into play.
Yeah, so if you have a VA loan already, the remaining entitlement is what limits you on the second VA loan or the third or the fourth. And those limits are based on the zip code you're purchasing in. And so one of the examples I give a lot for Hawaii is Hawaii has a much higher limit than, it's about 1.25 million, where the calculation for remaining entitlement is based on. If you were to buy a $700,000 house in Texas and then move to Hawaii, you have about $550,000 remaining entitlement, given that's the beer math of it. If you were to buy a $700,000 house in Hawaii and move back to Texas, you only have about 100,000 and change left because the loan limits are lower. It's about 825 or so in Texas on most of the mainland. And so where you're buying and the order in which you're buying matters. And one of the things we even talk about for people, you know, we're always big on asking, like, what's your long-term plan? What's your long-term real estate plan? And, you know, what Megan was talking about is having that full, free and clear entitlement is really important. So sometimes, you know, if you're like, hey, we're in Alabama and we're going to buy a house and then we're going to move to Hawaii and we want to buy a really big house. Sometimes we're like, hey, that house in Alabama is only 300,000. Maybe you do a 5% down conventional and keep that VA loan free and clear. So you can buy a $2 million house in Hawaii with no money down, and you're not tied up and limited by that Alabama house that you want to keep after a few years and turn it into a rental. So we strategize with that. You also too can bring a down payment of the difference if you do go over. So let's say it's 25% of the difference that you have to bring. So if you had 500,000 remaining entitlement and you wanted to buy a $600,000 house, you're 100,000 over what you have on your entitlement. You have to bring a 25% or $25,000 down payment, and then you can still buy that $600,000 house with your VA loan.
Nice.
That's good. Yeah, I like that. And Roberto, just type your question in the chat, and one of these high speeds we'll answer it for you. Oh,
And I can't see
sorry.
the chat from like my perspective on my phone. So if
Yeah,
you guys
you're
can read
good.
it out loud.
You're good. But I agree. That's my wife. But anyway, Megan, talk about, or both of you maybe, just some situations where, and Corey kind of hit on it a little bit just now, situations where you're like, well, maybe you shouldn't buy now, or, you know, maybe buy a home, or then also hit on the big one right now, which is new builds, right? A lot of our PCSing soldiers are going through that. You know, they're showing up at a new duty station. They see a new build community. You know where I'm getting at. Why don't you go ahead and elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. What I will say is that this is one of the reasons why it's really important to get with an agent who is a high producer, because no matter, it's kind of like when you buy a car. Have you ever gone to a car dealership and you've had people that are great, right? You have some people that are great. They know everything about the cars. They're maybe the top guy there. And it's just like, and they're just really honest. And it's like, hey, this is what it is. And then you go to that one guy who you can tell probably doesn't sell a lot. And he's just like a nervous wreck, kind of sweaty a little bit. He's really trying to push the deal because he needs that sale to eat, right? And it's kind of the same with real estate agents. I can't tell you how often I have seen agents, just not friends of mine, but, acquaintances, whatever, and they'll be networking and talking about deals. And I'm like, why are you even trying to make this deal work? This person probably should not be buying a house, but this person is living commission to commission and they're just trying to push it because they need to survive. And so it's really important who you work with and that you're working with an established professional who is treating their business like a business, like a business owner and not just a real estate agent, who can really truly treat the whole process from a consultation perspective and not just a sales experience. Um, because there are times, many times, where me and my agents that I network with and, you know, hire on to our network, where we're saying, hey guys, like, given the interest rates, this might not be a good time. Because every single scenario that we strategize, we always look at the exit strategy. It's, when are you PCSing again? Are you ETSing? Like, I've had conversations, oh, you're buying your dream house because you're ETSing or whatever. Are you sure? Do you have a plan set up? Have you talked to people about what the transition is like? Or are you going to get out and panic and then re-enlist, and then you PCS somewhere else and you have no exit strategy to this house you just bought, which has happened to my clients. And then you're upside down because you haven't built any equity and you're looking at a short sale. So really just making sure that you're with an agent who's strategizing your exit strategy. Okay, in 3 years, when you PCS again, what are the rental rates? If you bought now with zero down, what are your monthly mortgages looking like? Does the rental rate in that area cover that? Plus property management fees. Like, if not, like, why are you buying a house there? Is this a place you're wanting to return to when you ETS, or are you just wanting to buy a house because you're enamored with the area? um, and really looking at if this is truly a good time to buy, based on all of the strategies and the factors of your situation.
And we do
Yeah,
have go
oh,
ahead,
go ahead.
Corey, if you had something. I do have a question in the chat. Go ahead and answer that, Corey, and then I'll pull up the question from Roberto.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things we look at is probably how much time you're going to be at a duty station. So if you're doing, like, for rent versus buy, if you're doing a 1-year rotation to somewhere and you plan to sell it, you should just rent, because it's going to be very hard to make enough equity to buy and sell and not be underwater if you're only there for 1 year. So I think time is a big one. And then, like Megan was touching on too, I say this over and over, working with people who have enough business that they don't need to lie to you or to kind of manipulate you for their own pay, to survive, I think is very important. Where, you maybe don't want to work with the most busiest person ever that's just got that they don't have the time of day, but working with somebody who, like, my reputation and our value to, the community is worth more than me just trying to get you in a house so I can get a deal out of it, is very important, I think, when you're vetting the people that you're working with. And then the new build thing, I think, is a huge problem that people overlook. And the biggest thing that I tell people is, if you are in a new community that's got years of development, the reason you want to buy now, with the builder incentives and, the discounts for rates and stuff that they're offering you, that is who you're competing with when you go to try to sell and you don't have any of those incentives and your house isn't new. So you have to be very careful when you're purchasing in a new development that has maybe a 10-year run rate. You're in year one. If you plan to sell in 3 or 4 years, have a 4-year-old home. You have no rate incentives that the builder is paying big bucks for. Because we do those with builders. We can offer rate incentives. Essentially, they pay us a bunch of points to buy the rate slower. And now the only thing you can offer is a lower price. And that could be a significantly lower price than the new homes to match the fact that you don't have all these builder incentives. So I'm very cautious I tell people to be very cautious. If you're going into a new build, you need to have a good plan for how to get out or convert that to a rental or something, because you are then competing with the builder to sell your home.
Yep. And new builds are great. Just knowing also, and you mentioned it, that, where are we in the development stage of this new build? If it's towards the end and you're one of the last people to buy there, why not? We have a question from Roberto. I'm going to pull it up. So he says, I haven't used my VA loan, but I live in Texas. I want to buy a place in the country. How would it work? Does it have to be a house, or could it be a mobile home?
Yeah.
You can use the VA loan for all sorts of different things. By mobile home, it can't be like an RV, but it can be like chattel housing, as they call it, which is
Manufactured home.
manufactured homes are allowed. Yes. So if that's what you mean, Roberto, yes, you can buy a manufactured home with a VA loan, but like an RV type mobile home, you cannot.
Yeah, we're actually helping someone right now in Arizona buy a manufactured home on land with their VA loan. And what I'll say is it has to be affixed to the property, so it can't be on wheels. And then you have to own the land as well. So like a manufactured home on a lot lease in a mobile home park um, is not the thing. Also, I did find out recently as well that with manufactured homes specifically, the VA will allow, because sometimes people will move their manufactured home, the VA will allow the manufactured home to be moved once, but some lenders have overlays where they won't allow that. So just a heads up on that.
Yeah, I think manufactured housing probably has the most overlays investor to investor, just because it's a kind of a
Higher
more
risk.
niche, higher risk product. But yeah, so it is allowed. And to your point, there's stipulations with regard to like, you got to really dive into it a little bit more. But condos, townhomes, multifamily homes up to 4 units, single family homes, manufactured homes are all VA eligible properties. It's just there's some stipulations that come with different things. One of the big changes too, but that the VA puts out, it goes into effect May 1st. Peeling paint for homes after 1978 is no longer a must fix. It's considered cosmetic.
And let's get before
And
you go into all that, Corey, why don't we summarize it all? What a VA appraisal is, right? And kind of the things, because people might be watching and are like, well, what is he talking about paint? Like maybe the difference between a VA appraisal, if you're going conventional and you're just getting, an appraisal, like what does the VA specifically look like? Because we have to answer these questions all the time as well with our clients.
yeah,
Yeah, both of you can probably hit on
And
that, maybe bring up some stories and some of the things that you might deal with.
well, and real quick too, a VA or an inspection is different than an appraisal. So just from
Hmm.
the real estate side of house, you're going to have two, what a lot of people confuse as inspection type
Yep.
ish, I guess. The first one is your home inspection. You're going to get an inspector out there to find every crease, crevice, deficiency, anything like that. And you're going to have a period, your due diligence period, your inspection period, where you're allowed to ask for certain repairs. Doesn't mean the seller has to do them, but you can ask. That's the inspection. And then there's the appraisal, which is where, and you do with a conventional home, an FHA home or loan or whatever it is. Sorry about that. And those, that's where the appraiser comes in and says, yes, your home is worth what you are offering. And then you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you. We just don't see you, but we still got your audio. Maybe not, Corey?
yeah. So I think what Megan was
Okay, can you
getting
guys
at
hear
is,
me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
All right, go ahead, Corey.
So what Megan was getting at is the home inspection is different than the home appraisal.
Yep.
Inspection is for buyer purposes only. So you're hiring a private inspector that's going to check the home. They're checking a lot more little things. They're testing all the outlets. They're really looking for any defects that are in the home. That is for your knowledge, so to speak, in negotiations with the seller. The appraisal is a requirement from the lender. So the lender says, hey, buyer, you have to pay for a licensed appraiser if you want a loan. And this comes with virtually every loan program across the board. Different loan programs have slightly different ways in which they want the appraisal to be done. So a conventional appraiser versus a VA appraiser versus an FHA appraiser, they have some different boxes that they are required to check. For example, on an FHA appraisal, the appraiser has to inspect the attic, which, you know, may or may not happen on a conventional or VA. It's not a requirement per se.
Right.
So there's different little quirks that that the different programs have on their sort of appraiser checklist. And honestly, I think the VA had, you know, when decades ago, years ago, the VA had a very stringent appraisal conditions, and it comes from what they call MPRs, or minimum property requirements. And the VA sort of got a reputation for being like very stickler about certain things about the home.
Yeah, agents get nervous about it. Agents get nervous about it, and
They get nervous about it, and it really is more, I would say it's way more like reputation and
yep,
aura than it is factual, because all of those things that, you know, appraiser or like people have this idea that the VA appraisal is just, it's too tough on the properties, they appraise the property, like all of those things have gone away or changed. And starting in 5 days, probably the most notorious one, peeling paint, is now no longer a minimum property requirement, which is huge for homes after
that's very
1970.
huge. Yep.
Where they're saying, hey, this is a cosmetic defect, but not a requirement for livability. And
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. So basically on a VA appraisal, they might point out things that are considered cosmetic. That's like, hey, this is an issue, this is an issue. But that doesn't mean it has to be fixed for a VA loan to go through. And then there's other issues that are considered like safety or livability issues, where the VA says, hey, these things need to be rectified before we can allow the veteran to occupy the home. And so that is where people have issues with the VA loan, so to speak, because they're like, oh, they're too picky about, and then we have to fix all these things. The reality is every loan program has these conditions. If you have a safety or code issue on a conventional loan, or your property has a certain condition status, it has to be fixed. For example, a conventional loan, if you have a broken window and there's, you know, it has to be fixed. If you have exposed wiring, you know, or a stairway that's not to code, these are all things I've experienced on conventional loans. Those have to be fixed because they're considered like serious safety issues. And so every loan program has certain things that, you know, the property has to meet a certain standard to be occupiable. You can lend on it without it being fixed. And really, it just comes down to safety. That's even where the peeling paint thing originated from. Was a lot of homes had lead paint. And so they didn't want a home with peeling paint where a kid starts eating the paint chips and then you have lead poisoning. But I think it took them a very long time to realize, like, hey, latex paint, which is the primarily paint that's used now, yeah, you shouldn't eat it, but it's not going to give you severe poisoning if a kid eats that. It's just not good for you. You might have a tummy ache if you eat a lot of latex.
And really quick, guys, because I'm gonna have to get back to this event. So and there, did you address that in the chat where it says I live in the country? This
I was
place
gonna
is a
pull. I
house
was
but not
actually
complete.
pulling that up right now. So Roberto, follow up to what we spoke about with his initial question was, well, I live in the country, but there is a place that has a house, but not complete. It is 36 acres, and I want to get it.
So I'll kind of touch on this, and then after I'm done, I have to go. But essentially, you're gonna have to define not complete. So like not complete as in it's, you know, done but maybe not upgraded. It's not where you want it to be, but it's livable. Or not complete like there's no electricity ran to it, or you know, whatever it is. There is a VA construction loan. I'm going to let Corey elaborate on that.
Yep, that was gonna
But
be my question
essentially,
coming up.
and basically, technically, what that is you can do what is like a construction loan, where essentially the the loan encompasses the land and the future build, and it does draws. So as you know, put in the electricity, there's a draw for that. As you put in the HVAC, there's a draw for that. However, you have to find a lender who's willing to essentially carry that for the entire build process. And that is excessively difficult, if not near impossible to find. So what's
And it has to
better?
be, and if I'm not mistaken, Megan, it has to be licensed, right? It's not just do it yourself, or can
Yeah,
you do that?
correct. No,
Correct.
it has to
Yep.
be. And then, so yeah, essentially with that, that could be quite the feat versus maybe finding an investor or doing something like hard money, finishing it up and then refinancing it into your VA loan. That might be a better option.
Yeah.
So I wish we could have gotten to some of the fun questions before I have to go.
You're
Um,
good. Corey and I will wrap it up here as well, and we'll get you back on, Megan. Obviously,
okay, all right, sounds good, guys.
have fun. I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah, so like Megan was saying, there's two types of kind of VA construction. There's true construction, which is virtually impossible without a down payment, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
For like ground up construction, no money down. Now that's different than if you have, I want to clarify here, like this is, you want to build a custom home, you found a builder that's licensed and you're like, I want to buy this land and like do no money down and have you build me a home.
Yep.
Versus like new construction where you maybe put in your offer before the home is built, but you're not actually getting a VA loan, so to speak, until the home is finished. And the builder's doing multiple homes in a neighborhood, and you're like, you know, hey, in 6 months, I want to buy this home. You sign a contract, and then you pay at the end. That's not even a construction loan. If there's no draw schedule, that's just a regular VA purchase of a new build. So I want to clarify that for people where it's very easy to get a new construction from a builder that builds the house and then sells it to you, and maybe you're in contract for 6 to 12 months while it's being built, but you're not giving the builder draws as they build. They front the whole cost and then you buy it at the end. The other program that's out there that's probably a little bit easier but still can be kind of tricky is there's a VA renovation loan, where if there's a structure in place that has, you know, kind of a frame, a roof, basics, you can get a renovation loan, which then allows you to bring that property up to the minimum standard. Now, again, you still have to have a licensed person. So where a lot of people get frustrated with these is they're like, well, I can, you know, run the flooring and the electrical and the plumbing myself. My cousin's a contractor. We can do this. We just need the money for it. It's like, no, you need a certified, you need a certified like general contractor. You got to have a draw schedule. So, Roberto, depending on kind of knowing more about the house and some of that stuff, we'd have to look at that a little bit more and see if that would work.
Roberto, you can definitely hit us up. You can email me, faceman@VeteranTrashTalk.com. You can get a hold of Corey as well, Veterans Mortgage Source, and he would gladly help you out. And we can connect you with an agent out there as well. I have two more follow-up questions. And if you're in the chat, you're watching, you're listening, drop a comment if you have any questions. Corey, talk about, when somebody is trying to get a loan, and well, I'm going to go, I bank with USAA or whatever. I'm going to go with them. Like, what are some of the different brokerages, and like, what does that look like? Because we have huge lending companies out there. We have smaller ones who self-process. Talk to us about the differences. We ain't got to call anybody out, obviously, but yeah, kind of, educate our viewers and listeners on that.
So I would say the biggest thing, the way that I would break it down is, are you calling a call center versus maybe more of a local lender? I would make that distinction kind of, I think that falls into two buckets there. Call center lenders, and here's one reason why I don't like call center lenders is versus maybe a local lender in your area that is trusted, by your realtor or has a track record, is probably most importantly is that when I get a referral from a realtor in my network that, is, hey, take care of these people, my reputation is on the line with that realtor for future business, for my business with other agents in the community, which is really important to me. So I have a lot of skin in the game to do right by the client because of my reputation and and just being in the business community. When you're working with a call center lender, they don't really care about the realtor relationship. They don't really care about their reputation. You're a one-off deal to them that whether it works out, whether it doesn't, it's not, I would say it's just not as important to them, because you could be super pissed off and whatever, like, screw that company, that guy sucked. That guy's just going to answer more calls. And like, you're more of a number to them. And so I think that is really
important. I want to hit on that real quick when it comes to availability. And like you just mentioned, a number, right? A lot of those call centers, and they're a 9 to 5, right? And I've ran into multiple situations, transactions, even with you, where, we need a document or we need something that needs to get done. It can be a Saturday, it can be a Saturday evening. You're going to answer and you're going to get it taken care of, right? That call center is in no way, shape, or form going to rush anything. And if you need something, guess what? You can talk to them at Monday at 9 o'clock, So I want somebody who's really got skin in the game and who's ready to rock and roll for their clients, and doesn't just see them as another number.
Yeah, like when you work with us, like, you have my cell number. Text me, call me. You don't have to dial 4 prompts, to get to. That used to be one of my buddy's little shticks, is he'd be like, oh, call this place, dial 7, dial 4, dial 3. Oh, you're on hold. So it's really a service. It's really a service level thing. I think it's probably the biggest distinction I'd make between, you might have somebody at a really big company. If they're kind of like a local branch of that company, you still are probably okay in some ways working with them. Just because it's a big name doesn't mean it's bad, so to speak.
Absolutely.
I would say call center style lenders versus local on the ground, like, and maybe the distinction I'd make is, do you have that lender's cell phone number or not? Right? Or do you have a line you can text? You can't text USAA. Like, you can't text Navy Fed and be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? So I think that is I get people all the time like, hey, I was driving and I had a question, and they text me their stuff. Or even, I think where it comes in a lot more than people realize too is, we just finished up tax time. I probably had 50 people reach out to me about like, hey, where do I get my 1098 for taxes? My tax guy said I need this. Or like, do you know what my deductions are for buying a house? And I'm not a tax professional, but those are the type of things you want with your realtor and your lender, where it's not just get to the transaction. It's like, hey, I have a question about, it's a long-term relationship of like, hey, maybe you can help me with this. I had 2 people in the last quarter where they were moving and they were like, hey, we're thinking about renting. We know you've rented your house before. Like, do you have any advice? Like, do you know where we should try to find a tenant? Do you know anybody who might be looking for a rental in your network that's not going to buy? And I've connected people like, hey, these people wanted to buy, but they're going to actually rent. Like, why don't you, here's their numbers, like, connecting them. So I think that is the biggest distinction I would make. And then the other distinction I would make is, are you working with a decision maker? And what I mean by that is, I own Veterans Mortgage Source. So if there's a deal that's super tight and we have to make exceptions and we've got to get a loan pushed through and we need to give some concessions to try to just like get this deal to the finish line, I don't have a boss that I talk to about approving that. Like, I am the guy that can just be like, yep, we can make that happen. Versus you need, it's a tight transaction. Appraisal came in low. We got to adjust some things. Seller credit went away, and we need the lender to give $2,000 of credit to like get this deal to the finish line. You're working with a guy who's just maybe too junior And like, he's got to talk to his manager, and that manager has to talk to their manager about, well, our policy doesn't allow that, but that now takes two days to get an answer on, where I can give you an answer on that in 5 minutes. Let me check and see where we're at and see what we can do and see if we can just make this work. Done. So that is another thing I would say is, are you working with a decision maker? Or are you working with kind of an order taker that, you know, maybe he's been personable and stuff, but he just doesn't have the authority to like make anything happen really. And we've all been there. You know, when I first started, I was probably in that position a little bit where I had to talk to a manager and be like, hey, I need some help on this. But I think, are you working with at least a company that has an efficient process for exceptions, for getting things answered and complete in a timely fashion, versus they have to send it up the chain, it's going to be a 48-hour turn time? That just doesn't work in a real estate transaction.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And then we are getting close on time here, so we'll do one more question, one that everybody is asking, and one in this question everybody's stressing about right now: interest rates, right? Should I hold off now? And obviously, Corey, you do not have a crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball. We don't know if they're going to go up even more, if they're going to go down. But, you know, there is obviously that fear, especially with the VA loan. I mean, I know I bought my first house back in 2004 with like a 2.2, right? And my current house here in Arizona is a 5.2. We locked it in like during COVID or right after COVID. I don't quite remember, but what are the interest rates right now? What are we looking at? Do you personally think, and I know it's hard to say, again, we do not have a crystal ball, right? We can't tell anybody they're going to go down or going to go up. But just elaborate on that a little bit, because there are a lot of companies out there that'll tell you, hey, 4.2. But then when you get there and do all the paperwork, you realize that's not really what that is. So why don't you hit on that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so I'll answer that first part. So rates are just one part of the equation. So when people are quoting rates, it's rates plus cost. What does it cost for that rate? So you can get, you know, I tell everyone the best way to think about it is rates are sort of a choose your own adventure in some regard, where
I like that.
If you want a low rate, we can do that, but it costs money. And if you want a high rate, you might even actually get a credit for taking a higher interest rate above market, so to speak. Now you're getting a credit towards closing costs or other stuff. So when people advertise rate, and I think they do this because it's the one thing people kind of know, like, oh, I need a low rate for my loan. They're not looking at the cost. And really what you want to evaluate, the simplest way that I compare rates with clients is, what does it cost and what is the difference in payment? So a very easy example is, this lower rate saves me $100 a month, but it costs $3,600 more to get. 3,600 divided by 100 is 36 months. There's a 36 months or 3-year break even to take the lower rate due to the higher cost. So for the first 3 years, you're actually better off with the higher interest rate, because you save money up front and then recouped it over time with the lower payment. So that, I think, is the most important thing when, you know, when you're or you're talking to your buddies, or you're talking to other people, like, I got a 5.1, and you're like, okay, well, what did it cost? You know, we don't charge lender fees, processing fees, underwriting fees, admin fees, anything. So other lenders will charge a 1% origination fee, so on top of whatever the cost is. So you really got to evaluate, like, what is the total cost? What is the rate? That is the actual thing. And what I tell people is, look for the best value, not the best rate, because that is the holistic picture you're trying to find. As far as where rates are, I would say, obviously, it depends a little bit on your credit score. It depends a little bit on your area and your loan amount. VA interest rates are hovering kind of right at that 6% mark. I think it's probably the simplest way across the board. One thing I kind of like right now that have made a bit of a comeback is 5/1 ARMs, which very simply what that is it's an adjustable rate mortgage. The 5-1 means it's fixed for the first 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 1 means it adjusts every year after that. VA 5-1 arms are standard, so they can adjust 1% up or down after that. But especially for people in the jumbo loan category, so VA loan, like high balance, like think $1 million plus. Some of the 5-1 arm rates for VA have been very attractive lately. And where I like these is, adjustable rate mortgages can be scary and you've heard all the bad things about them. But if you're PCSing to Hawaii and you're here for 3 years, that rate is fixed for 5 years and you plan to sell at the end. If you can save 0.5%, 0.75% with a 5-1 arm, I think that's a really nice product to take right now. I actually locked a guy kind of before the whole Iran war and everything started. We were getting people at 4.5%, 4.75% on the 5-1 arms because they were really making a comeback as far as pricing. Before, it just didn't really make sense because the rates were either the same or better on a 30-year fixed. So it's like, why would you, if it's the same, I'll just take the 30-year fixed. So I like those a little bit right now. I would say talk to your lender about if you're kind of shopping, like just ask them what their 5-1 arm pricing is because it might be a lot better for the same cost. And as long as you have a plan for how to handle that, come time to refi or come, your sale plan, those can be great options. And then as far as where I think rates are headed, Kevin Warsh is the new Fed chair, Trump's pick. Obviously
he doesn't go into position though yet, right? It's another
he
2-3
goes
months before.
He's up right now, like they're doing the Senate hearings and stuff, but all things considered, he should be in there by May, sometime in May, as taking over.
And then usually it's a quarter to evaluate really what's going on, right? So
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then it's the midterms too. So I personally think with the political kind of wins, like it's midterm elections, like incumbent party, regardless, wants rates down, wants the economy booming, right? It's important for the midterms. So I do think by the end of this year, we'll see some improvement. I think Iran will get wrapped up. I think that that gets wrapped up, Warsh is in there. That should actually help lower rates. But again, who knows what's going to happen. But I think if you think Iran will get wrapped up, the midterm political headwinds where it's like the party in power always is trying to make everything like really nice right before the election.
Of course.
And
a political way.
the new Fed chair going in, I think that will be, when that happens, I can't tell you for sure, but I do think like they will start coming back down. The other thing that was really interesting, and Kevin Warsh actually talked about this in his Senate hearings about like inflation and stuff, is AI has been very deflationary in a lot of industries as far as like bringing the costs down. You see this a lot right now. The most affected is like SaaS companies, which is software as a service companies, because AI can do a lot of the software stuff, which is bringing the cost of certain things down. Lower inflation is great for interest rates to come down. So I do think AI potentially has a lot of deflationary pressure on the economy because it can make things to be done cheaper and more efficiently, especially like with software and coding and inputs for companies. If you think about even like if airline scheduling becomes more efficient with AI, or routes for transportation are like more efficiently computed with AI versus, a bunch of employees and stuff, that brings down the cost of those things in other ways that, so I think, that could really also help interest rates long-term. And again, who knows, but, I think that can also help because it can bring down the input cost for a lot of different goods. Lower inflation allows for lower interest rates. And with that too is like, is AI going to disrupt a lot of jobs? If employment is an issue too, the Fed also is big on trying to keep lower interest rates so that employment can stay higher. So
Yep.
I think we have a lot of good things, 6, 12, 36 months headed in our favor. There's going to be some bumps along the road. And what I would tell anybody, you can't necessarily choose when you need to buy your home, but you can
Correct.
always refi. And
Yep.
the VA especially has the best refinance program in the I think it's the best refinance program of all programs. And the reason is it's a non-credit qualifying refinance. So the IRRL, as you'll see it, IRRRL, is the VA's streamlined refinance. And basically, as long as your rate is coming down by 0.5% and you meet payoff, net tangible benefit requirements and stuff, and it makes sense for you, you don't even need to have a job. You don't have to requalify. You don't need an appraisal. You just essentially just lower your rate. And I think so. What I'm getting at is, yeah, maybe the rates are a little higher when you go to buy. You can always refi, and I'm a big fan of like the no cost refinance where the credit covers any closing costs you have in your refi. You don't give up any equity, and you just are dropping your payment and dropping your payment. So you can't time the market, but if it makes sense to buy now in your area, you have a long-term plan versus renting, I would say don't let interest rates deter you from being a buyer versus a renter if that is the only factor. If you're like, well, rates are too high, I'm going to wait. I mean, I've heard people say that for the last 4 years and property prices went up 10, 15%. So now congrats, rates are lower, but the house is 10% more expensive. The payment is the same.
Love it.
So
yeah, no, this is great information. And if you're watching and you're kind of just on the fence, you're not sure, hit up Corey. Chris, our producer, already put it in the chat. All right, veteransmortgagesource.com. And like Corey mentioned earlier, it's all about education, right? You might not be ready to purchase, but Corey's going to lead you or point you in the right direction or tell you at least what you need to do to achieve that goal. And then my wife was on here earlier. I am the COO of Armed Forces Across America. Okay, so just hit me up, DM me on Facebook, go to our website, send us an email, and we'll help you find the right agent in your area so you can, buy that dream home or buy that investment property, whatever it may be. If you tuned in late, go to VeteranTrashTalk.com. That is our website, which has the links to everything. You can go to shop.VeteranTrashTalk.com, buy some of our awesome merch. Today, I'm wearing the Gruntworks OG shirt. Okay, we got a lot of shirts up there. We don't even know what half of them are, but we have fun with it. So go buy a shirt, support the cause. Go to YouTube, subscribe, like, and Corey, final words, and we're going to get out of here.
My final words, I don't know if these ever change, is just talk to somebody that's an expert in the field. Talk to me, talk to David, talk to people on our team. Education and just getting the conversation started is the most important first step.
Absolutely.
Time and time again, people don't think they're ready. It's not right. Either that's true and we can help give you a plan to get you ready, or you're actually ready now and you didn't think you were. So, our pre-approval, our pre-qual applications, soft credit checks, they're free. There's literally no reason not to just try to go get pre-approved and see where you're at. And then we can give you a credit improvement plan. We can give you, hey, you need to work on paying this stuff off, or you're going to need a down payment. This is how much you need to save before you're ready to buy. Starting that sooner rather than later is the most important thing as far as having a plan to buy a home. So hit us up, even if you don't think you're ready or you don't think you can. The number of people we've fixed their credit, we've helped them pay stuff off, given them a plan where all of a sudden they're at a 500 credit score and now they're at a 680 and they're able to buy a home. Sitting around and waiting around for that to just kind of magically happen doesn't help. So talk to somebody, talk to a quality lender in your area, give us a call, and we'll help get you in the right place.
Love it. Faceman VTT out. See you guys next Saturday. Boom.